Let me move on to South Africa, where the continent's most advanced economy dodged economic recession in 2023, posting a 0.6% growth, 0.2% in the fourth quarter, as reported today by the Statistics Office. The positive reading of 0.2% in that fourth quarter was led by the mining sector. In the meantime, the U.S. has sanctioned Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa and other top government officials on allegations of corruption and human rights abuses. Washington also suspended talks on Zimbabwe's $18 billion debt. Now let's cross now to Johannesburg, where Chris Hart, the executive chairman at Impact Africa Investment, is joining us tonight. Good to have you again on the Arise Exchange, and a pleasant evening to you, Chris.
Good evening. No, thank you very much.
Thank you for making the time. We appreciate it. What's your reading of the latest GDP report for South Africa?
Well, I think that GDP is in fact highly disappointing. It's still below the potential of the economy. When one actually looks at the level of the GDP, the real GDP after inflation has been taken into account, it's really it's hardly changed from pre-COVID levels. In other words, we've literally lost 3 years of growth, from that point of view. And even though it's a positive number, 0.6% overall for 2023, 0.1% for the final quarter of the year, it's way below the population growth. And this has been a pattern for the last 10 to 15 years, that the economy has failed to grow, or keep up with the population growth, which means on average South Africans are getting poorer. The high unemployment rate is again, it breaks records around the world, and that is again purely. I honestly still believe it's self-inflicted, and we can see this, in terms of the falling investment levels in South Africa.
Well, very interesting. That 0.6% GDP, Chris, was about half of 2022 figure, thereabout, which is about 1.2%. So do you see this as a signal that the economy is turning the corner for good, in particular the mining sector, and how the country has been able to deal with the rolling blackouts that South Africa had for most of 2023?
Yeah, well, the rolling blackouts are not stopping, and that has negatively impacted the overall growth rate. But you see, in the subsector for electricity and water, etc., you are getting investment into that sector to pick up some of the slack that the rolling blackouts have left. And that you could say is creating growth, but the resources being funneled for alternative energy in South Africa are in fact diverted away from other areas of the economy, so we're getting a solution to it, but it's not that you could say transferred growth unnecessary. And if the utility was working properly, it wouldn't have been needed to put resources into that area, but rather into other areas which would have, potentially created jobs. It's a problem that we see in the economy, that increasingly, and you can see this in the budget, etc., more and more resources being funneled for consumption purposes rather than for investment purposes. In other words, it's for poverty alleviation rather than poverty reduction. And we can see this with the stubbornly high, unusually high unemployment rate, but also high poverty rates, which is really unnecessary for a country that's as rich as South Africa.
Okay, so Chris, do you see the new GDP figure as a strong investment positive for South Africa? And what sector do you see that in focus? Do you think investors would say, look, things are turning the corner, let's get more into the country, let's put in more investment as we see election down in May?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people are holding back for the election. So you're going to see a poor first quarter growth and second quarter growth as people hold back. They want to see what actually happens, get some certainty from the election results. I do think there are within the economy quite a lot of opportunities that you've got to get behind the overall numbers for. Remember, the interest rates are at their highs, and so that's also putting a brake on the economy. But as I say, when the interest rate the cutting cycle starts and the election is behind us, I think you'll start seeing a surge of investment again coming into the economy. And you may well see a stronger second half growth in South Africa if the election results favour investors and favour the political parties that are in favour of that. If we see it turn to the left, it may well further hamper economic growth going forward.
Of course, Chris, we've got a lot to talk about as we move towards the election in May. It's going to be very interesting in South Africa, and I'm looking forward, perhaps, going to be on the ground for the election coverage and the economy and investment in South Africa. But for tonight, thank you very much. Insightful analysis from you as always. Chris Hart, Executive Chairman at Impact Africa Investment. Have a great evening in Johannesburg. Thank you very much.